What's up, guys? Today we're going to be talking about the episode preview for episode 5 of American Horror Story 1984 entitled Red Dawn. And before I get into anything too specific, I just wanted to say that American Horror Story 1984 seems to be steamrolling through this particular section of the season, and we're going to have some kind of Roanoke twist or shakeup of the season sometime later down the line, potentially in episode 6 or maybe even episode 7, but we're going to have to wait and see. I'm not entirely sure what that is yet, but we don't have any material, any footage, or anything else to go on, so we're going to just jump into this preview and really take it from there.
Darkness resides in everyone, even you.
Okay, so I mentioned this in my episode review for episode 4, but the idea that Rita and the Night Stalker are going to start working together. In fact, it looks like he's trying to tell her, at least in this preview, that yes, darkness lurks in everyone, and everyone has a general connection, not only to the fact that they can kill other people. I mean, look what Rita has done over the course of this entire season. She keeps saying she's not a serial killer, but she's setting up traps and putting people in really dangerous situations. I think she's more alike to serial killers than she's willing to believe, and one of the things that this relationship between her and the Night Stalker is really going to bring out in her is the fact that she has trauma, and maybe she's going to pick up a knife and start stabbing people. Maybe she has some relationship to everything the Night Stalker's about, and she starts worshiping the same deity that he does, you know, but we're not entirely sure. I would imagine that they're going to flip the script. I really hope what this means, though, for the future of the season is that Billie Lourd is not going to be taken out after the course of this episode, and that she can find some kind of redeeming quality. The one thing they could really give to us, I'm going to save this a little bit for the further part of the preview, but the one thing they could really give us is some kind of shock as to how all of this is going to play out, because my biggest gripe with the last episode was it pretty much was written out throughout the entire season what was going to happen, and everything seems to be falling into place with no real shock value. I really hope the next episode gives us something to push us into the next couple episodes that really shake things up in a major way.
It all has to burn!
So what I've been saying for about a week now is that I want these main characters to survive. In fact, Trevor dying in this last episode was a huge bummer for me because I wanted to see more of the interaction between him and Xavier going forward this season. But one of the things this preview really keeps pushing is maybe Cody Fern's character is going to start becoming a little bit crazy. Maybe he is going to find the path of a slasher villain sometime later down the line this season, and this is kind of the birth. I mean, look, the guy literally got burned in an oven. What if he is going to end up dying, and then he's going to come back as the Freddy Krueger of this season, and he can be a little bit darker? I mean, this guy wanted a career. He kind of got thrown into this, and everyone is taking advantage of him. What if this is him going crazy? Someone is going to kill him. His ghost is going to come back, and they're going to do some kind of Nightmare on Elm Street concept later down the line this season. I mean, that sounds pretty awesome to me. I really hope they do something like that.
I'm gonna rip you apart.
Okay, so one of the things that we definitely have to talk about if these last 5 episodes are one part of the story for American Horror Story 1984 is the fact that Margaret kind of has to die, and Mr. Jingles has to die. And it's totally fine if the Night Stalker ends up going off into the future. Maybe he has a bigger part to play in this season, but because we do know an older version of him shows up in American Horror Story Hotel, but at the same time, all of this stuff needs to end. So it really does look like Margaret's not going to survive the morning, or at least get away scot-free. In fact, one of the things that we saw in last night's episode is the fact that Mr. Jingles kind of refused to kill Xavier after Xavier got out of the oven. And it's briefly looked like he's going to give up this entire serial killer persona, as it were, but at the same time, he is going to want to get back at Margaret. There's a reason this guy is still alive, and him killing Margaret seems like the most obvious situation. I would be very surprised if that's not how this shakes up. Now, I'm not really sure what that's going to mean for Jonas going forward or anything else they're going to do with Camp Redwood in the future of this season, but I really do think that Margaret has to die, especially in this episode, because she kind of started all this, and everything that she started, or at least the entire story up until this point, has been focused around her, the opening of the camp, and the introduction of Mr. Jingles, who came back specifically for her. So it would kind of feel like a fitting ending to take her out sometime during the course of this episode.
I wish I never came here.
Another thing this season has to discuss after the course of the last couple episodes is what was the relationship between Brooke and Montana's brother, who was the best man of Brooke's fiance after her fiance shot him for thinking that he was sleeping with Brooke, and we don't really know anything about that right now other than just pure speculation. Brooke has denied it. Montana thinks it's true. What was the relationship and how is all this going to shake out? One of the things I would really hope for, and a lot of this is just because I love Billie Lourd. I feel like Montana is one of the better characters this season, and we've already lost so many people. But my hope is that sometime as this plays out, maybe Montana and Brooke end up fighting together, even if, like Cody Fern's Xavier, maybe he does go crazy. He takes out Rita, or Rita escapes somehow. I mean, it looks like Rita's going to be taken out, but maybe he goes crazy and they end up killing him, and he comes back as that Freddy Krueger character I was talking about earlier. But we have two final girls, and that's the big shakeup of this season that's a little bit different from all the other slasher films. I mean, normally there is one final girl, and obviously Brooke fits that mold, but Montana doesn't. But potentially there could be two survivors, and they're both these women, and that's how this all really kind of plays out. I'm not entirely sure, but it's going to be really interesting to see how it does.
Mr. Jingles, I released him.
Okay, so this is kind of a little bit of a brief thing. Obviously, we're going to have some kind of interaction after the events of the last episode where Rita is talking to the Night Stalker, but she's going to make her way to the rest of the group, and Xavier is going to lash out at her. Maybe she's going to start seeing the error of her ways, and she's going to confess all of this, but end up dying anyway because Cody is just absolutely livid, and that's at the very end of this trailer. But it definitely looks like she's going to come clean.
You did this to me?
Look at my face!
Okay, so this really brings me back to the entire Freddy Krueger thing. I might even do a video on this that I can drop tomorrow morning so you guys get the idea of where I'm coming from. But this scene of him in the oven is different from the scene that we saw last episode. It's not a flashback. I mean, he's going to end up in the oven again, maybe because he just freaks out and goes completely crazy this episode because of the very last shot here. But you know what, guys? Go down to the comment section below and tell me what you think of this.
It's your fault I'll never be on the cover of TV Guide!
You know, and finally, like I keep saying every single week it seems like, is that American Horror Story needs to be funny. It cannot just be blood and guts and horror aspect and all this other stuff. One of the things that makes this show endearing is that it has a weird, wicked sense of humor, and that scene and how it hopefully plays out will be the big, like, funny moment of this episode. I would really like for that to be the case because, look, if this show was just nothing but blood, guts, sweat, and tears and everything else that would make us so depressed, then I don't think it would have the rabid fan base that it has, and there'd be a lot more people decrying it than there are now, because it deals with a lot of heavy issues, and we need just weird, nobody would ever say this, it just kind of feels like a cheesy television show, and it's so quippy and so quick, and it doesn't really matter what is going on in the season or the story, just because there's so much going on and there's so much stuff to take in. The stuff that's scary, the stuff that's funny, the chemistry between the actors and everything in between. And you put all of that together and it really kind of culminates in what this show is all about. So I'm happy that the humor is there. I want it to continue, and I would really hope that as we get a little bit further into the season, maybe we can have a little bit more fun with everything going on and start laughing again and genuinely being shocked at what they're doing this season. Like I said in my review for episode 4, some of the stuff that we saw in that episode was potentially the most brutal things that we've seen throughout this entire series. So yeah, I mean, they haven't really lost their step there either. So I hope everyone is having a fantastic day. I hope you enjoyed the video. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Hit that bell over by the subscriber button to notify you every single time I upload. It's been real.